All right. Well, everybody, thank you for being here on a snowy Wednesday in December. I know that you want to be here right now, so thank you. This is Golf 101 with a little bit of legal ethics sprinkled in there. This has been a long time coming. Steve and I have talked about this for a number of years, and I think there's a good overlap. And so we decided to put this together. It's 90-minute CLE. The sign-in's over there. Please make sure you sign in. Also, just so everybody understands, you have until January 20th to actually submit your CLE transcript to any MCLE. You have until December 31st to watch your CLEs for this year. So just for anybody who's worried about getting in their transcript, it's not about the transcript getting in by the end of the year. It's actually about the January 20th for that.
I'm going to introduce our panelist here. We have Lauren Goodman from the Draft North. Lauren, are you a member somewhere?
I am, yeah, at Omaha Country Club.
OCC. Nice little track there. What handicap are you? Any hole-in-one?
No hole-in-ones, handicap, and it's gotten a lot bigger over the years, but I would probably say somewhere between 10 and 12. I played in school, and I played a lot when I was younger, and obviously.
But you're smart now, you know. Get the higher handicap.
Yeah, exactly right. I get that's right. I get a lot more points from Steve. So.
And what's your favorite golf course to play?
I guess my favorite golf course that I've played is in Royal Lytham. In St. Anne's. That's been by far the coolest experience, but I love playing OCC here for sure. I like Arbor Leaf a lot.
Arbor Links? Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, thank you for being here.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
And fellow OCCer, Steve Hogan.
Yes, thank you for having me here.
Give us the rundown.
My OCC favorite course I've played is probably Cascada in Vegas, if anybody's been out there. My never had a hole-in-one, flirted with it many times, but never actually had one. Favorite club is probably driver, grip it and rip it.
Ooh, yeah. Lauren, what favorite club in the bag?
It's probably sand wedge, just because you can do so much with it. But
great, yeah. Love that. Andy Wilson, OVA's president. Hello. You're not a member nowhere, but
I'm a member of everywhere.
We can find you a lot of times out in Elkhorn. What's the track out there?
Indian Creek.
Yeah.
Indian Creek, Benson National, Dodge Park.
Steve Hogan Golf Course.
Yes. Hogan National.
That's right.
Yeah.
And what are you rocking for a gin these days?
Okay, short story. I was up in the 16. I went to Scotland this summer, and I swear to God, that's where I should go play because those courses fit my game like there's no tomorrow. I dropped damn near 3 points. I'm at a 12, and I can't shake it. I came back here, and I went back to shooting in the 90s, but Scotland is my home.
Any favorite club in the bag?
Putter.
Right. Last but not least, Warren Whitted. Warren, thanks for being here today. I heard you say to Lauren, you are an actual rules official.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a responsibility
I have been a USGA, Nebraska Golf Association, NCAA World official since 2003. And all that means is that I have gone to rule school and spent a colossal amount of money trying to learn the rules. 20 times, 3.5 days each, and I still don't know what comes to. But my handicap or my index is 14 and I can't play to it. My favorite course is Royal County Down, which I've played once and I go back in a heartbeat. And I'm probably the oldest guy in the room. Lowest bar number in the room.
What is it?
14503.
Okay. 12725. You're not the oldest.
You got me.
12725.
We're probably the same time.
The win.
Yeah.
And favorite club in the bag one?
My caddy.
Yeah. So we have to set up for 9 holes. We'll take a stretch at hole 4 or 5, so Rick can just grab Arnold Palmer stuff over there. Would love to hear what people want for ratios. I'm more of a 2/3 1/8, 1/3 iced tea guy. I know that's sacrilegious to some other people. KT Arnold Palmer would talk about the head if you're in that. So don't call that with money. But we're going to go through and talk about some rules of golf and situations in golf, and then trying to figure out how they relate to the practice of law, which the NEMCLE Commission believes that we're doing here today. So, no, I guess I could. With that, we're going to start off with the easy one here, which is keep the course, keep the profession in good conditions. Obviously, our two favorite examples here is Sergio Garcia and Bryson DeChambeau, who love to slam their clubs into the ground. Now, I gotta ask you guys, be honest. Do you, when you're playing and you're in the bunkers, do you actually rake it afterwards, or do you sometimes leave it? Lauren,
I do, yeah. I always rake it.
You do.
Always, yeah.
And do you rake it towards you or away? Because I've heard that there's different theories on that.
Usually rake it towards me. I will say though, if I'm playing and I know I'm the last golfer out there for the evening, I sometimes won't because I know they're coming in the morning.
You draw a heart.
Correct. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Gotcha. Replacing divots. This is a question I have for everybody here, and maybe replacing divots in the fairway. I take my divot, I put it back in, I stomp it down, maybe put a little seed, sand. I've heard that that's not what you do in tournament play. Maybe that's accepted in the rule. Warren, you have a...
That you see it both ways, but generally people do replace their divots.
Yeah.
And then in major tournaments, they got little coolies that run around and replace them for you. But the bottom line is, you do divot.
And in the Masters, they actually cut down, I believe.
The Masters,
right?
Scissors to go around that.
Well, I've always heard that for aesthetics reasons and for people not to get into your divot, that you should replace them, but that it doesn't actually help or assist growing back. Like the best thing is to put seed down. If you're at a place that has seed there, which not all places do. But yeah, if I'm playing at a place that doesn't, I'll try and replace the divot. Just again for aesthetic reasons.
You always have enough time, Steve.
Yeah.
And we're all in agreement that the rule should definitely be the ball lands in a divot. You're able to take it out, like, even though that's not what the rule is.
Play the ball out as it lies.
There are two rules of golf that make any difference at all. The first one is play the ball as it lies, and the second one is play the course as you find it. If you follow those two rules, you never have fun.
Dave, I got to admit, so Scotland, playing Carnoustie, playing out of my ass, playing it down the whole way. And if you guys remember the golfers, Carnoustie, John Van de Velde, 18th hole. It is a brutal, I know one guy that knows how brutal that hole is. I mean, you got the burn right in front of the green, out of bounds in the back. There's nowhere to go. I hit in the bunker, hit it out, so I laid up. I'm in a sand divot. And I look at my caddy. He looks at me. I go, there's no effing way I'm playing out of this damn. So I moved it out. It was the only time. God was looking down at me. I know, but I'm like, I'm not playing out of the divot. So I think you got to have some gentleman's rules when you're playing the game. You don't have to play it like the pros.
Fair enough. Well, I'll take a poll here. So what do you think? Hands up if you think you should be able to move it out of the divot.
You can't.
We're not taking it there.
It's a white change the rule.
Okay. And play it as it lies. Play it wherever it is. All right. So here in our legal profession, there's got to be a kind of a tie-in that we need to take care of what we're doing here, right? Keep our court system, keep our profession in good condition. And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on how this relates to the law practice.
Lauren?
Here's me.
Oh yeah.
why would you ask me? I said I only knew the golf.
Because you're at the
My sense is that this gets back to how we treat each other and how we handle information. As lawyers, we get a vast array of information about the cases we're dealing with, some of which we're obliged not to disclose, other which we make the decision not to disclose. And I think sometimes our objective is to win as opposed to reach the right conclusion. And so I think we ought to be more careful as to how we share information.
I look at this situation as just our common politeness. And I've seen it over my practice where some lawyers have not treated people that, for example, work in the clerk's office, staff people, very friendly, kindly. I think this discussion lies at the heart of that. I can't tell you, in my opinion, how important it is when I'm looking at somebody, what kind of attorney they are, how do they treat other people, especially those that are staff people, clerks. When I was in the public defenders, I knew firsthand, the bailiffs know who doesn't rake the bunkers and replace the divots. And make sure you're not on that list. You do that, you're going to be fine. But I think at one level, that's this rule.
Yeah, and I would actually take what Andy said one step further. I mean, in terms of just trying to treat everybody. I mean, not just bailiffs and court staff, but just everybody with respect. I mean, I would say probably once a quarter I'll get either a cold call or some message in, and I'll listen to it, and it's immediately. I know that the person's probably not a good fit for our firm, or I can't help them, or maybe it's not even a legal issue. But I do always just try to return the call, because I think, the legal profession, there's enough negative connotations with it, particularly when it comes to public perception. So I think just responding and having the courtesy to at least spend some time and returning the calls and look at them is a good thing.
Thanks, you. And I would just say, I would echo everything that everyone else has said, but just something else as far as like not fixing a ball marker on the green or something like that. At least for the litigator side, proofing your briefing and having proper citations. Like, it's really easy to just take Westlaw or Lexis and just copy and paste sometimes, but that won't actually, always work. And then between the bailiff or the judge or the law clerks or opposing counsel, when they're trying to find some of the things that you're citing and can't because you didn't cite properly, just simple, small things like that can go a long way. So,
yeah. One, I like what you say about, the outside perspective of the profession. That's important. For 99% of what Sergio Garcia Bryson DeChambeau, they do it well, and they do it, like it should be. And then we got them on camera, and we keep on playing the scripts, and everyone thinks they're an asshole. All right. One hold down. I put on my Emergency 9 hat because I feel like that's what's going on here today. Emergency 90 minutes. In December. Mixing out holes. So hole number 2. Bro. You need to apply the rules to oneself. Now, we've always talked about how golf is a really unique a game in that we self-regulate out there. We apply the rules to ourselves. We have to call penalties on ourselves. If there's no kind of slopping like in the NBA, you're waiting to the umpire to call the foul on the other side, and you're playing to get them to call it, and it's all about winning and finding a way to win. Here you gotta self-regulate, and there's an example that I talked about or that I found in 2010, and there was a golfer who he was gonna win a PGA tournament, and he called a penalty on himself in the playoff and lost the RBC in 2010. He was the only one who recognized the rules infraction, and he had to call it on himself, and it cost him. For the semi-pro golfers, collegiate golfers, you guys probably have some examples, huh?
I I personally can't think of a situation where I know of a player actually overlooking a violation that he made. Now I'm sure it happens because but some of the things that you see called by the golf ball at rest moving, and get into the whole situation when you cause it to move or you didn't cause it to move. But you see these guys, and they see just a minute movement, one that you and I couldn't see, and they at least call an official to say they didn't move. And there's a definition, there's all sorts of specifics, you can get down to how it happens, but it just amazes me. And then of course you always have the example that's given about Bobby Jones where he called a penalty on himself, and somebody was praising him for calling the penalty on himself, and he says, that's like congratulating me for not robbing a bank. That's kind of the theory behind the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of golf, is because it does have that integrity aspect to it. I also have a junior golf program that my dad founded, and that's one of our main things that we preach to kids is the importance of golf is there's no referees out there. There's no one to tell you you're doing wrong. You have to know. And it's just as in life, or in this case, as in the law. So, if you hit a ball that's right on the line of out of bounds, or your ball moves as you approach it, things of that nature, to call yourself out. And I mean, it happens far more often than I think one would imagine, where those things do come into play. And even when you're playing your friendly games with buddies, you calling yourself out on those things is important, or at least checking, hey, the ball moved, are you good with me moving it back, things of that nature. So I think it relates to the legal practice of, at least for the litigators I can speak, it happens to the best of us, where we have an approaching expert deadline or discovery disclosure deadline, and you realize it 2 days before, and there's no way that you're going to actually get it. And so sometimes it's calling opposing counsel saying, hey, I know that I have a deadline on the 15th. I'm not going to make it. Are you okay with doing a joint stipulation to continue it for 30 days? Or if not, you have to come clean with the court and tell the judge, what, Your Honor, I screwed up here. But, as a courtesy, I'd appreciate an extension of time. So, and you may get it and you may not, but it's the nature of the game.
Anyone else?
But I would just add, and it's throughout all of this discussion, the biggest difference, the only difference really I see we have with these rules is we have this thing called attorney-client privilege, which you don't have in golf. There is no privilege in golf. Do you report a violation? That doesn't exist. There are many instances in our practices where we're put in a tough situation as to what do we do. And in my 30 plus years, when I felt I'm in a situation where I cannot disclose a privileged confidential information, I've got to answer to the court, I can't respond to your question, Judge. You got to be really careful in those situations. You can't say something that could be interpreted as not being truthful. So if you feel you're in that spot where I'm in a tough spot, you don't say anything. And the judges know that when you're in that spot.
Yeah. It's a really good point.
On the golf course, you call it a rule official.
So rules officials for all the USGA, amateur stuff that goes on, there's rules officials there walking, or they're probably a couple per side. On the women's floorball that I'll be doing this year, I'll have a zone for the stroke play qualifier, and then I'll be a walking rule official with a group in match play. So they have a rule official right there. Match play is a different breed of cat, but so we're there, but our responsibilities are limited in the match play, particularly in the stroke play portion. The players have a duty. Every player has a duty to every other player in the field. So their duty is to protect not just themselves, but the field. And then as a rules official, my duty is to do it if they don't. And as a referee in match play, it's a battle between two guys that pretty much are people, pardon me, and
to a large extent, they can play by the rules as they see fit, so long as they don't make an agreement to ignore a rule. So but there are people there watching and keeping their eye on it.
How far can that go when you're in match play, right? So if you hit one that's into the woods and you're in match play and you guys just decide to take a lateral drop because you can't find your ball, is that possible even if it's match play?
That would be an agreement to make a rule.
Right, and you can't do that.
Can't do that.
Right, okay.
I'm my own assistant.
My grip. I'm known.
Okay, yeah, I got down kind of the tribunal rule 508.3 and the preambles to the legal rules of professional responsibility that we have in Nebraska, paragraph 10, where it says the legal profession is largely self-governing, and so following along with golf games, applying the rules to yourself, it's important. Lauren, anything you want to add?
No, I mean, I guess the only thing I would say is just this idea of, if you do feel like you get into a situation where you're in court in particular and maybe something that you had previously represented to the court is no longer true, there's a perfect example of just kind of owning the issue and disclosing it to the court so that, again, it kind of takes some of the burn out of it and it enhances your credibility, I think, before the judge or the jury. But again, just another example of kind of being your own police person.
It's not always fun.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
You're like, I went to school, I've done all this practice, and now I have to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Puts you in a vulnerable position with your clients, with your firm, just how you feel about your practice. We tend to think that we're heroes. We wear an S, on our chest, and we can't be anything less than perfect, but we are. And we got to understand that about ourselves and about the people that we practice with and against.
Yeah.
I learned all this from my wife, who actually practices law, and from all of my WA members. I sound like a so we're gonna go up hole number 3. Not knowing the rules isn't a big thing. The two examples, and the one here is Phil Nicholson, who loves using the rules to his advantage. Right, we've seen that over the years. I think a couple of years ago, out on the California swing, he basically moved his ball like 100 feet and had a perfect shot where otherwise he would have missed the cut. And he didn't know that the rules changed. And he was actually called over a rules official, and they said, no, you don't know that the rules changed, they changed. Mm-hmm. And so Phil actually utilized them to its advantage earlier this year or last year. Colin Morikawa as well, he didn't understand that you couldn't put slope on the greens that you get when you're taking your practice round. So in the practice round, saying we're reading the slope, he wrote down in his yardage book, and that is an illegal use of the device to give you an advantage during play. And the fact that he didn't know the rule didn't mean that he couldn't be held to account for it. Lauren, I gotta ask, you're going to every single year, you're going to this 3.5-day thing. The rules changing just a little bit each year, or
they change every 4
years,
and there are major rewrites every 4. And then in 2000, I guess it'd be 17 or 16, they had a major rewrite, a significant rewrite that basically repealed all the previous 60 rules. Cool information I had. But that not knowing the rules is not a defense, like you say. It's and the deal with the rule book or the yardage book, they are trying to take green reading materials out of the equation. They want the players to look at the green and read the green, and not read the green by reading a book. And so the size of the yardage book, more importantly, what can be in it, like you were talking about. It's amazing. But I mean, I've never had anybody ask me to look at their yardage book, nor have I ever asked. Because I don't really think I know what was right or not, what wasn't. I mean, it's pretty complicated, some of this stuff.
He actually got called out by Matthew Fitzpatrick, another playing competitor who saw his yardage book or something.
We've gotten to the point at USGA events that we tell them, don't bring, or you can have a yardage book that you carry around on the golf course, but if we see a yardage book when you're on the green, you're going to not necessarily be penalized, but we're going to have the Spanish Inquisition. And the Mars trying to figure out what's in the book.
I mean, we obviously have the worst example, which coming up a little bit later, is Bryson DeChambeau and how he's just been staring at his book constantly. You know, does anybody have those read books that give you the slope and the read? I bought mine and donated it because it messed me up more than it. I'm just not smart enough to understand the data that gives you.
Well, you rely too much on the technology instead of what's right in front of you.
Well, as you can see, I mean, I have a few of my putters there, the arm block method, which I followed Bryson down that pathway. By the way, so if you putt it from the back line into the putt out and it sticks, you get a free mulligan at the field day next year. So it's worth $5 if you get it. I'm giving you 2 tries with any putter you want there. You know, is there a similar sort of thing that's come along, even when you're in golf, you know, Steve and Lauren, when you guys have not understood a rule and it's come back to bite you? I mean,
That's
maybe
one of the changes that have been made to the rule.
Right.
That if, in some cases, it used to be absolute, that the rules used to be much more absolute than they are now. And if there are instances where you make an honest mistake, and you either can correct it, or your intent is part of the determination, and it's not black or white anymore.
And I mean, little things, you know, I'm thinking back to when I was younger, but, you know, not wanting to.
You're still young.
Well, not that young, Andy. Not that young, trust me. But, you know, like marking your ball when you're off the green, right? Like if somebody's ball comes in very close to yours, you know, and you're on the fringe or something like that, and what you can do in those situations, or if your foot is standing on a sprinkler head, that you can get relief, but if you're trying to putt it from off the green and the sprinkler head is in your way, maybe you can't get relief. Like trying to determine all of those different things, you know, there's so many rules at play. And so it's always best to call people like Warren, right, that know, but if you're just having
know what the answer is.
Right.
We might even know.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, what I will say that the USGA has done a better job, at least in recent years, is being more accessible to everyday golfers by having, you know, an Instagram page where every day they have a new video of a different rule or something like that to make it more digestible. Because I don't know, I'm guessing that 99% of the people in here play golf, probably not Ben Novotny, but most other people here have. But I like have looked at a USGA rule book like a handful of times when like it's an important rule, but it's not something I read every single time I go and play golf. So it's nice seeing those reminders when you're watching, you know, Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or something like that. So.
This is an ad for the USGA, so just don't. The USGA rules app is free. You get it from the USGA website, and it is free, and it is the most understandable to access the rules I remember.
Mm-hmm. Warren Whitted pushing an app on people.
He's got the laptop.
Yeah.
For our context, Dave,
I could do it.
I look at the rules of golf and how they've changed since I was a wee lad. I remember TC Chen, the double chip.
Yeah.
That was a penalty. That's not a penalty today. I mean, USGA has evolved and has made changes in the rules. And when I saw this, I started thinking about, okay, what about the rules of professional responsibility? How have they changed since I had hair? I remember when I came out of law school, the standard of a conflict was the appearance of impropriety. That's not the rule anymore. Read the rules. There's two conflicts, direct and concurrent conflicts. And the concurrent conflicts allow situations where you can proceed if you can determine that there's no conflict. That wasn't the way it was when I started. The other big change that I can think of off the top of my head, you could never threaten criminal prosecution in a civil case. That was a rule. That's not the rule today. Yeah, I know.
They changed that?
If it derives out of the same set of circumstances, it's not a violation of the ethical rule. It pays to actually look at our rules, and if you have a question on things, don't always rely on, especially when you're my age. I won't even say Lauren's age. My age. Don't rely on what it was back in the day when I took those exams, because it's changed. You got to be aware of those.
For sure. And, you know, we've obviously had a lot of changes recently with exhibit filing and everything like that. It seems like more and more we're having regular updates to things, civil procedure, substantive. We actually, John Lenich, the retired professor at University of Nebraska-Lincoln, he's going to talk to the membership in February. Date still TBD, but we're going to have a primer on the new civil procedure rules that just came out actually last week, I think. So we're going to, get everybody up to speed on what they need to be doing. The law continues to change, right? What we do continues to evolve. That's why we have CLE, mandatory CLE. Right. Warren, anything?
No, I mean, I think to Steve's point, in terms of rules, trying to keep track of when you get relief, I think has been, at least my experience with golf, and some of the things that have changed dramatically since I started playing.
And it's better. It makes more sense. Right?
Yeah.
We want people to not be discouraged by rules that, again, just don't seem fair, seem arbitrary, if we know what they're doing. And that's good. And frankly, as attorneys, we should be pushing back if there is a rule that we don't think makes sense, procedure-wise, certainly professional responsibility-wise. Let's bring it up. Let's talk about it. Let's see if we can maybe move something forward to change it. I know sometimes we're like, well, let's just follow the rules, but if we're all complaining about the same thing, let's try to fix that.
Yep.
All right, so let's do one more hole, and then we'll take a quick stretch. The duty to disclose, and here's where I really don't have as much information as you all do, is practicing attorney's care. But the golf scenario that we're talking about isn't actually like you talked about, Warren. And you are playing a hole, and you get up to the green, and they were on the left side, you were on the right side. You couldn't quite see exactly what was going on. You focused on your own action. Maybe they had a duff that they that's played again, or played again. You ask them, "What are you lying here?" And they have to give you their strokes to that point. When you're in normal stroke play, you don't have to tell your play partner, what stroke you're on. But in match play, you have to give that information because it can determine if they can see the putt to you, right? I'll pick it up, you're good. And, to the match players here, would, love to hear if you have any stories about situations like that. And frankly, I mean, it's important to give the right information too, right? I think I have 3 shots, and then they hit the putt and you say, oh wait, I had 4. Well, maybe they were lagging the putt instead of trying to sink it because of the information that you gave, right? So the game of not giving enough information now can't do that in match play.
Right. I mean, yeah, that happens all the time. And it's annoying sometimes, especially when you're playing with someone that is, a seasoned golfer, when you get up and you're asking, what's this putt for? And they say bogey or double bogey. And, you know, you say, all right, that's good, pick it up. And then, oh, wait, no, you know what? That was actually for a 4. No, I got it wrong. Or when you ask them what they're putting for and they're like, well, wait, let me think. Like, you know what you're putting for, you know, 99% of the time. Again, with seasoned golfers, I'm not talking about, you know, brand new people. But yeah, and then you run into that situation where you're like, it's good, it doesn't matter because I have 2 putts to win anyway, or something like that. And then they try and change their score, and that can impact the whole match, you know, in a negative way. Yeah, or yeah,
It's lost the whole penalty.
right.
But it's not quite as cut and dried, and it's not as though you don't have to do it in stroke play, but you don't have. I mean, if you're incurring a penalty in stroke play, you've got to notify your fellow competitors as quickly as possible after it occurs. But in match play, giving wrong information is not the whole. And it's even if it's inadvertent. I mean, it's you know, as many strokes as I take, it's easy to say that I miscounted. It's also used by people to take advantage, and it's pretty. There's not much gray area there.
I've seen it, you know, field club, minor courts. I've seen some people play games with giving the wrong information on match play.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I played a number of, obviously, women's tournaments and women's match play tournaments, and I don't know, maybe women are just either more honest, or I have not run into these issues where you've got just wrong information being given. I mean, everybody seems to be kind of play by the rules, and maybe I'm naive, or I'm not looking, but I just haven't seen.
I would say in all my experience, and this is, I hope it doesn't sound like a sexist comment, but my experience has been that women play closer to the rules than men do. I mean, just generally. Now, they spend a lot of time talking about it along the way, which is but they are again a little better than guys.
Fair enough. You know, the legal side, obviously, we have our rating information, and you were a health defender. You probably were holding the prosecutors to account in the law enforcement on got turned out with that information, right? And sometimes it sinks their case.
It can be hard because I can be as competitive as anybody else, but practical way to look at it as our discovery rules are set up to disclose things. But yeah, the biggest difference obviously between golf and our profession is, you know, Steve asks me what I got on a hole, I can't go, objection, relevance, privilege, whatever. No, I got to tell you what I got.
Give it numbers.
Yeah. For the younger attorneys, everybody's going to have their own style. I've always operated, especially in the civil cases. I'm going to presume the other side knows everything about my case, regardless of whether they actually have the information or not. And once I start playing games, I'm going to go downhill. None of us wants to disclose information that's detrimental to our case, but 95% of the time, the other side already knows it anyway. So you're not really giving up any big secrets here. I'm pretty confident our tribunal here, our judges, know who plays games and who doesn't. And they prefer to have lawyers that don't play games.
Yeah.
You might have a good reason to object. And obviously, I'm not saying you don't object, but just to object for that purpose. Yeah.
And then it just draws out the process, and then you have to meet and confer, and then you have to go back in front of the judge just for the judge to say, you know, your objection is not valid. Please produce the information, and it's not that damning, right? But we had to go through this entire process to get here. It cost both of our clients additional money, time, cost the court time and effort to get to, you know, to a point that was simple. By all means, you know, represent your client as effective as possible, but we have a habit of unnecessary objections and fighting back against the other side, I think, sometimes as well. I have a question for Warren myself. This is probably more fitting for hole number 3 about not knowing the rules. But there's this, you know, there's a big online golfing community and YouTube golfers and all that. And there was this match. It was like a 2-man scramble versus, you know, 2-man versus 2-man. And one of the guys just missed a putt the first putt and tapped it in, and the other guys said, "Oh, that's your score. Then you got a 4." And they didn't give the other guy an opportunity because this one guy tapped his putt in to hit the second putt. I think that is the rule, but is that true?
Yeah, that's the rule.
Because I think that everybody breaks that rule in every scramble that is ever played.
When the ball goes in the hole, hold over. And whether it's, the fourth guy in a 4-man scramble or the first, all goes, and that includes the tap-ins, yeah.
Yeah.
That's all right.
So for field day next year, we're going to say we're in for a par, but let's try to make this birdie putt.
That doesn't count. That doesn't work.
You hit the ball in the hole with the par.
We've got to understand that the Bar Association Field Day and the rules of golf are not even on the same.
I mean, realistically, the only reason I'm doing this is so that we don't have 30 under being the winning score for a field day at Field Club. This situation when you're talking to your client and you're like, this information is really damning. You told me this information is out there. This is really bad for our case, and this is, we'd be fine except for this information. And then the official discovery comes, and all of a sudden those emails are the only ones that are missing. And this idea that when clients feel like they can just not respond, when you're like, you have to disclose this, and then they go out of their way to essentially spike it, that maybe I'm speaking of a hypothetical that never happens to anybody. But I feel like there are times when, even when you're coaching your clients not to do something, they're like, you're winking and nodding, right? Like, it's the opposite what you're saying. Nobody actually has it happen. Lauren, you've ever had it happen. But making sure that our clients understand, they have to disclose the information. The discovery rules are there for both sides, and it can't hold anything back. Yeah.
You guys not cheating?
Okay, we'll start back out. One part of 04 that I actually got to mention, it was like 4 Oaks, the Corntown Ashland. Really fun course, very beautiful course. You walked it.
Oh yeah,
Steve,
yes.
plenty time.
It's the worst walk in Nebraska.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's
Right, it's just
yeah, it's pretty, but yeah.
It's a horrible walk, and I walked it one time too, and I can test that.
Mhm.
But the Q School example, did anybody hear about this? This guy, so Q School is your feeder tournament to get a card to play on the mini tour, or the semi-pro tour, right?
Mhm. Like Corn Ferry,
Corn Ferry Tour.
and then make it to the PGA Tour for that.
And so the Q School is a bunch of levels of tournaments, and Quarry Oaks was one of the sections. And there was this guy that came in from Florida or North Carolina, and he was a pro, professional golfer at his own course, taught and everything like that. Played in college, and he proceeded to play the most crazy round of golf, I would say. He claimed that he got an eagle when nobody could see it. He ran up the hill. He hit the ball, ran up the hill, and was like, "Oh, it's in the hole."
Mhm.
And everyone's like, "But your ball went that way. How did it end up in the hole?" And then he kept on slicing the ball like crazy. And
Into the
he'd
woods.
be like, "Oh, I found it." And Quarry Oaks is just like huge trees. He can barely get through it. And he's like, "Oh, I saw my ball here." And then he'd hit, and it was like, "No, your ball is in there like 30 yards." Anyway, it's a story that Fire Pit Collective had a really good read, sad read, in some respects. But this guy, they went in with a machete. They found all his balls that he had lost in the woods that he said he found because he had marked them a specific way. And the story on this is just nuts. This guy claimed he had 11 hole-in-ones. He did not disclose information. He definitely falsified information, and it's worth a read. I can certainly send the story to anybody who wants to hear more of it.
When he got caught and now he's exposed and he'll never be able to play in something like that again. Whereas if Hey, we've all had terrible rounds. Maybe he really is a good golfer and just had a bad day. You live to see another day, but now, he's done.
You know, they were like, they were looking at the physics. Could a ball actually get from this angle to the hole? Is there any way possible? And no, and there wasn't a ball mark or anything like that. You guys chipped out from 230 yards ever?
Maybe not
I
too.
did make an eagle from 231.
Yeah.
I was like 7 years old. The real question, I mean, there's other issues than just the cheat. I mean, this guy's a cheat. If you had looked at Webster, he's the picture.
Yeah.
But this puts lots of pressure on the people that he plays with.
Right.
Because, in order to finish your round, you've got to sign a card. And your marker has to sign your card. And by signing your card, he's attesting to your numbers. And so his signing the card that is inaccurate leads him to be disqualified. And yet, everybody's out there fighting the same battle. So they've got a real quandary as to how to deal with it. And it's usually not like this. There'd be no difficulty we tell this guy to take his card where the sun doesn't shine. But where it's a closer question, it becomes a hard deal. And there are sometimes what your marker sees and what you see isn't the same thing. So those are hard questions. There's ethical issues involved in that. And yet there is a real consequence to the person who isn't actually involved in the cheating by what he decides to do.
You ever slipped something in the stipulation? Or not you? Anybody got up against and slipped something in a stipulation that he actually didn't agree to? We didn't agree to this.
I've seen it be done against me, and you actually have to read instead of just, oh yeah, I'll put a stipulation together and file it with the court. Well, send it to me, and then we can get it filed in. Because sometimes people will try to do that or change their dates or something like that without sharing it with the other side. So that does happen, unfortunately.
Or that
Yeah.
The court agreement. We haven't actually agreed to it, but we're in agreement.
Yeah.
I've had some experiences where what I thought was agreed and what the other guy thought was agreed weren't even in the same.
All right. So we're gonna have a lovely 2 minutes of this on video here. Don't tell YouTube to them. Show them that. So you want to watch Justin Thomas, who just finished up putting. He's over in the corner. Tommy Clevewood is also playing with Bryson DeChambeau here, back when he was wearing the Hogan cap. Everyone is just like, come on. It's an 8-foot putt. Gets out the yardage book, gets out the greens book, hey? He's looking at it.
It's painful to watch.
He's a scientist, so it's all about, what's the humidity, what's the slope, and things like, what direction the greens are cut and which, green, that's certainly important. But he gets out here and you think and Justin Thomas's caddy can't even watch, he has to turn away. And Justin with about here, he'll go into, get down on his knees, just head in the hands here. He just can't even. Does anybody use the line on their putter like that to get the read of it?
Not.
Oh, he's there. I know he's in it.
Yes.
Yeah. It's. Yep. Justin's taking off his hat. He's ready. He's just dug around. He's only ball 11. Looking at his fake clutch. I love that. And he's got that arm lock putter, which Warren, we talk about arm locks. I'm going to get my arm lock over there. Nope. Gotta reset. Leave it out.
So bad he He should have been shot by now.
He was already on the clock, actually, at this point. Which they didn't give him a penalty for this, but he had already been put on the clock. He all fast. It pushes it the name.
All that to miss it.
Oh, pace of play. Let's talk about pace of play. So we have in the rules of golf here, take no more than 40 seconds. And Warren, is that just okay? The person just hit their shot. Now you're on the clock for 40 seconds, and you have 40 seconds to go.
When you arrive at your ball,
Right,
you're clear to hit.
clear to hit.
40 seconds.
40 seconds.
And they'll generally the first player on the green will get an additional point, but that's not written in the rule. And you very rarely see people penalized. And the biggest problem is that they'll say, well, you know, we waited on the last 4 shots. And they had gone to a system called the checkpoint system, where you had to meet certain time criteria. And then if you failed to meet time criteria, you were penalized. USGA is now going back to the previous way of doing it, just keeping your interval full. But pace of play is the biggest problem in the game. Yeah. You play a public course round is 4.5, at the very least 4.5. It's unfortunate.
I haven't seen a 4.5 hour round at a public court, like a busy
At the
one.
very least.
Yeah, it's 5 is the norm.
Yeah, it was a huge issue in college. So we'd have 3-day tournaments, and the first day was usually 36 holes, and it would be mind-numbing how long it would take, and there was just no way to really regulate it, because like Warren says, the excuse is, well, I waited on the last hole. So I mean, there's just it just seems like from a logical standpoint, you know, once everybody gets spaced out, you should be able to just all play, but you're not playing at the same pace, and it would be a very long day.
Now, when in just normal play, we're trying to get a group to come through. You know, we're the slow group. We're going to let them through. What's the best way to do that? Is that at a par 3, you're on the green and then let them on the green and putt out? Or, you know, I've seen people play different ways on letting people through basic play issues. You guys have a standard on that you like?
Yeah, I mean, I've done what you said before when I'm either the slow group or the fast group behind them and say, yeah, you guys, we'll hit, we'll mark our balls, you guys come up and hit and go. But I don't know, sometimes that just causes more of a backlog. I don't know. It's a tough.
Everybody's got to mind their own place in the golf course and just let it happen. Yeah. DeChambeau is a real piece of work, I tell you. It didn't just start here. I had him in 2 match play rounds in the Amateur Public Drinks Championship. And first of all, I wasn't a very nice guy, but he particularly wasn't nice to the road official that was watching with this. But and he just really slow and just methodical, analyzes everything. Of course, I walked with him for 36 holes and didn't realize his clubs were all the same length either, so maybe I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it's a lovely thing. Anybody else a single length club person? Just this guy.
He does everything like Bryson.
Yeah, except that I'm an asshole. I can't rock white pants. So in pace of play in the legal profession, you know, maybe having this case, you know, drag out for a couple of years is really good for our side. Maybe, you know, in the world of divorce, maybe my client's business doesn't make a lot of money, so we have some really good years to show that our business isn't making any money, can't get any money out of there. You know, but maybe it takes a lot more attorney time over the course of those years, and maybe we shouldn't be slowing things down. You guys fast litigators, slow litigators in between, depends. Yeah.
Depends on what side you're on.
Yeah.
All the plaintiffs' lawyers out here and former defense counsel knows that one of the best defenses for a defense counsel is delay. Not purposeful, but I'm looking at Mike. What were the 3 motions before notice pleading that every insurance, demur, special motion to strike, and make more definite? Sorry. You would get those 3 motions every case. And thank God we finally got notice pleading in place, so they put that crap to rest and we don't deal with that. But, you know, I think it's what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? you know, a lot of times as a plaintiff's attorney, which is what my practice is primarily, I don't want to rush because my client's still treated. I don't know what the extent of his or her injuries are. There's going to be a reason why I don't want to get this done right now. So I would say though, Dave, in my experience, I haven't really experienced any out of control delays or just nonsense. I mean, if you've got a case, if you're a plaintiff and you're ready, you go. You're going to have some control, and I think the courts most of our judges are going to be willing to give you a trial date and you can get this thing going.
Yeah, we had the bench bar this fall, and I asked Judge Elliott about abuse process, motions, and McDermott came in over the top. Chad's answer was like, "Oh, this is a good bar. We don't have any problems. We don't need any abusive process." And she was like, "I will, award attorney's fees if there's a legitimate abusive process issue." I think maybe the tide's changing a little bit more, that the judges are willing to say, "Hey, you can't play that game here. I don't know. Let's keep it moving."
And I think it always depends, like Andy said, on the facts of the case and, each attorney, right? Like there's a few different plaintiffs' attorneys in here that I've had cases against. Some are ready to go. It's basically as soon as they file suit, and then others, we're going to do depositions in 6 months. And that also depends on my schedule, on their schedule. That's why having that open line of communication with the other attorney is important. And also the size of the case. Sometimes, if it's a fender bender that you just couldn't come to terms with the insurance company, you had to file suit. It's not much that needs to be done. And we, in theory, actually can have this tried in 4 or 5 months, right? But other cases you can't. So I haven't run into it a ton. I would say the biggest thing, again, is just discovery, objections and disputes and fighting over those types of things. Once you get past that, for the most part, I don't run into that very much here in Nebraska.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it depends on the facts of the case. For the right set of facts, delay can, like Andy said, can be your best friend. And it's certainly something that, is the best way to frankly represent your client, again, depending on the facts of the case. So, and I think you can delay things without abusing the process. I mean, I think a reasonable amount of delay.
And it seems like in federal court, magistrate judges have really stepped in a more significant way recently to move things, to try to work out those discovery disputes. So it's one of those things. It seems like cases in general are taking longer. That's anecdotal evidence that we've heard. Show of hands, who thinks this is the case that they're just getting longer that they have? Anybody want to say that they're getting longer, or just me? What I do too. I think I need to do a survey on that. All right. Hold sticks. Working with your opponents together. So the golf setup here is mat play, and again to the conceding of putts as being made without having them putted out, and also understanding local rules. I'm at Field Club of Omaha, where we have fences everywhere, right? If this was my club advisor, I would say fear the fence, because we're a very small course. We hit over a road 4 times, and there are fences everywhere. So if you hit one fence, the more modern fence, you got to just keep playing it. That's a stroke. You continue to play it. If you hit the wood fence, you get a complete redo of the shot. Sometimes it's even didn't look like it hit the fence. And if both players agree, if everybody agrees, then you go back and have a complete redo of the shot. If you think your ball went down the street, we don't know because we can't find your ball because it possibly went down the street, then you can replay. Crazy local rules at the Field Club. You got to work together with the person you're playing against. You want to beat them, but you got to work together. The conceding up putt, the game within the game on that. You know, you give somebody a putt, they don't give it back to you, then you're not going to give them a putt going forward. What, you know, let's talk that out. I know that's been a big thing in Ryder Cup play and this like that.
You give a guy a putt for 7 balls, and then on an eighth hole, you don't give a ton. You know, that's but it is gamesmanship. You know, and it's part of the game. You know, it's right along the line with the stymie rule that they used to have, where the ball was in your way, right? The real issue becomes whether or not a putt was conceded. You know, if you say to somebody in match play, good putt, that putt isn't conceded. But a player could assume that it was and pick the ball up, put it in his pocket, and have to call me to figure out how to get out of his pocket. But you know, it's got to be very clear what you're doing. That putt is good. Pick it up. Those kind of things. But it is gamesmanship. It's not just speed up play. It's gamesmanship.
Yeah, try and give them the putts early so they don't have to make any 3-footers. And then once you get to the backside, then they think that it's good. Oh, all the time. All the time.
I'm really big on giving putts early that are ridiculously long, and then just shorten it up as we go along, and they just like remember that I give them that ridiculous 7.
But you're not playing match play, and you're doing the most violated rule.
It's match play. It's match play. It's match play. It's league match play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always start out being the nicest guy, and I think that works. So I didn't find anything in our rules of professional conduct necessarily that made a lot of sense. I mean, preamble, sort of, a little bit of that. But I thought that the Kentucky Bar Association's, the Code of Professional Courtesy or whatever's on the backside of your over there, I thought it was a nice short. Let's work together. Let's have This is kind of the common courtesy that we talked about, but that we don't have really written down. I think we talk about it a lot. I think it's what judges will say in our bench bar every single year. But it's between the lines. Be nice. Give an extension. If you can, don't have them go into court. For that. Again, our professional character is understood that if we're an asshole, you look at the asshole back to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, professional courtesy.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have a little bit more out there. Maybe
I completely agree.
Here in Kentucky.
Yeah, I think that everything would go smoother for a lot of people, but unfortunately, and fortunately for some, but I guess being the quote unquote asshole is like a part of their MO, right? And whether it goes from taking depositions or deadlines or not, extending certain things or making certain threats, that's just certain people's MO. And as a young attorney, you have to learn what to adapt from this person versus that person and versus that person, and try to not do that, because again, it's beneficial to the court system and to our clients on both sides, that if we can make this process work efficiently, people won't have such a negative connotation of attorneys. But some people are just assholes.
And maybe the understanding that we're counsel for our clients and not taking it personally, which is something that we've talked about forever, and understanding that they're trying to do the best for their side and you're trying to do the best for your side. And maybe it feels like an asshole moment. Maybe they're actually just doing something and not taking it personally is something we need to work on more. Yeah.
It has to be a conscious effort too. I mean, it's become more easier and easier to be an asshole. Yeah. All the technology makes it real easy to be a jerk. And we've got to work on it. When we interact with one another, we've got to do more than just, send them a quick email. I mean, I had a problem with an associate a number of years ago, not a problem, but I wanted her to go down and talk to the fire marshal about fire. She's like, well, I emailed him. I said, call him on the phone. Well, I emailed him. I think, call him on the phone. And it's hard. People don't do that anymore. And it's so much easier. I mean, I remember somebody who said something to the Supreme Court when he replied all to the Supreme Court. It didn't make me very popular.
Yeah, to your point, Dave, I mean, kind of having a thick skin. I mean, sometimes, you know, attorneys get asked for certain courtesies, but the client, if they knew they were extending that courtesy, would just go ballistic. So, I mean, I think, again, you know, for the most part, I've always found everybody here in Omaha, and I practice Fairmount in Iowa as well, to be very courteous and such. But I don't know that we would necessarily need those rules written out, because I feel like most people do it. But you always run into somebody who, you know, is just a jerk. So.
And officially, I think on YouTube replay, we get to say that this is an explicit CLE. Oh no, I'll be on the asshole. Intent matters. No, see just video. Or again. Include matchers. What hole is that again?
It's like 13.
13. Dogleg left. Race Creek on the left side. You hit the ball straight sideways. Don't stop the T marker. He was taking a warm-up swing. Zach Johnson from Iowa.
Drake University.
And he's done it other times. He's taken a traction swing and hit the ball sideways. He did not have intent on the host. So the rule changed. And yes, that wasn't careful. So intent matters on the golf course. Certainly in this situation, we didn't practice swinging. You got hit the ball. I've done it. What do you usually say? That's one, right?
Lie too.
When you want to be really funny, you say that's one. But it's not one. It's not one anymore. It's a retee.
Only
You know-
there though.
What's that?
Only there.
Only on the tee box.
Correct.
Correct.
It's not one for a stroke on the other spot. It's a penalty stroke if you do it somewhere else. If you unintentionally hit the ball in the fairway while you're taking a practice stroke, you got to put it back and count one. But it's not the stroke; it's the penalty stroke for moving your ball in play. And I bet you really didn't care.
Instead of moving to where the ball is now and calling that.
Well, okay, you're in the fairway. You got a ball. If you take a practice swing, you hit your ball and it goes 20 yards away.
Yeah.
It's a penalty for moving your ball in play. That was not a stroke. So it's still not a stroke. It's a penalty. Penalty stroke. So I lie one in the fairway, I nip the ball and bring it back. So I'm hitting 3, but it's a penalty stroke. You don't count the swing that was unintentional.
Could I though and say, well, unintentionally, but it's an okay spot over there, and I have a better angle to the hole?
No, because it's either a stroke or it's not a stroke. And if you don't put it back, then it's 2 strokes.
Yikes. I should have a higher handicap than I do right now. You know, when I was trying to connect intent here, with specifically the rules of professional conduct, what I saw a lot was if somebody's going to get, public reprimand or a private reprimand or license suspension or complete suspension, never to practice again, the Supreme Court looked a lot at intent. If they tried to intend to, steal funds from their clients, they had intentionally not been responding to their clients, which is the biggest ethics complaint is clients saying, hey, my attorney communicate with me and I wasn't aware of what was going on in my case. And so if you intentionally meant to not talk to them, they treat that as different levels when it comes to intent. I also found that pro bono, if you have a case and it's the end of the year and you're like, oh yeah, I did get paid on that case. Yeah, that was my 20 hours of pro bono right there. Well, you didn't intend that to be a pro bono case. You just didn't get paid on it. You can't quite call it pro bono, at least under the rules of ABA rules of professional conduct. And I don't know if anybody had anything else to say on this. It was like a short little one here. Any Any other connection to law practice?
About the only one I could think of in discovery practice, you know, when you send out your discovery answers, you can always amend, but good luck trying to amend an answer. You disclose something that, oh God, I shouldn't have done that. Yeah, you can do it, but yeah, you're in a bad spot. I think that's true in golf. I mean, hey, your intent counts.
Yeah.
This is a quick one, so I'm just gonna move on. This one didn't get as much of the other ones, I don't think. Okay. Conflict of interest. Obviously, we talked about a lot as a lawyer, but in the golf rule here, and this is the hot topic. They talk about this a lot now. Is a caddy for a player cannot give help to the opposing player's caddy. Now, if you're following along with the marquee group, they talk it over distance, what club, and they choose a club, and you'll see the caddy turn, and 5-iron, 7-iron, they'll put up their fingers for the announcer person. If they're on the tee box, you'll see the other caddy looking at the clubs. But you're not supposed to say, oh, I got this yardage, I'm using this club. Helping the other side is not allowed in official golf. We all help each other usually out there, right? Playing the 5-iron.
Yeah.
In general play, that's good, but not in competition.
I think it was Brooks Koepka that got in, some hot water for doing that at the Masters with Patrick Reed and flashing a 5-iron at him as he was about to hit, and it became a whole thing. And he lied and said he was stretching out his fingers. But yeah, it's neither here nor there. But yes, that definitely is a rule that is pretty strictly enforced in golf, and because it's about protecting the field and not just I could be Lauren could be beating me by 13 shots, and so like between her and I, it doesn't really matter. And I say, Lauren, what, do you think this putt is breaking left or right? She's like, no, it's dead straight. And I make it. It doesn't matter to her, but I may be playing for 49th place, and the guy that's in 48th right now is going to be mad because I made it.
And you both get used to a penalty.
There you go. See, so
Warren's out there.
yeah.
If he asks, you just don't tell him.
And it just asking.
Just to
for a
ask.
lead is
The ask
a
alone.
penalty, only if it's said in response. Pardon? That it's a straight. So if Steve asks if it's what the putt's looking like, and Lauren says nothing, just get a penalty for
You
asking.
get the penalty for asking.
It's not. And if it's just offered by Lauren without Steve asking, they both get penalties.
No, if Steve doesn't ask it, and she just happens to hear it in the wind, then it's her penalty, not his.
I just say it out loud.
Yeah. God, this putt is so straight.
So straight.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then, Andy, you talked about a little bit conflict of interest in the law practice, and we have 501.7, 501.8, talking about conflicts of interest. Always be cognizant of what the rule is on that. Certainly, don't fear talking to your clients about it, right? You have to disclose right away. You have to talk about it. They can sign off on it, right? That can be allowed in many circumstances, and it could be allowed. But if you try to hide a conflict of interest, that's never going to be it, right?
Yeah. That happened to me not too long ago, actually. I got a call from a prospective client about representing them and filing a construction lien. And I was sending out the conflicts check as I got a call from another attorney at the firm asking if I could work with a current client of the firm who also wanted to file a construction lien on that same project. So I sent the prospective client to someone else. I didn't get too much information from them and started working with our current client. Got the lien all ready to go, all this stuff. I called the opposing counsel, talked to him for a little bit. He said he was going to add us to the complaint once we get it filed. And as I'm doing that, at the end of the day, the CNS report comes out, and I see another one of my colleagues had already filed a construction lien and answered the complaint for another subcontractor in this case. This case had like 35 subcontractors. And so at that point, I'm like, oh gosh, like what can we do here? And luckily was able to get it out to another firm and just put up a barrier between myself. But, you know, sending out those conflict checks, having a conversation with your client about what the conflict is. And in this case, I don't think we could really get around it because it's all the same pot of money that we would all be going for. So it happens though.
Any conflict of interest, lovely stories of anyone?
If a caddy's double bagging, he can give advice to both players.
Well, that's true. That's been
Despite the conflict.
and make a lot more money in the same amount of time there.
A lot higher.
What's the going rate for caddies at OPC these days?
I don't know. Yeah, how many years they've been there? Really?
Those kids that double bag though, that's tough. Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
They're on the shoulder, it's not push carts or anything.
No,
like that.
2 on the shoulder and walking up and down all those hills and running from this side of the fairway to that side. They earn whatever they get that day for sure.
You know, Steve, you mentioned Cascada, your favorite course. My dad plays it a bunch of years ago, and a lot of, you know, Vegas sharks play out there, right? But a lot of sluts too. And my dad had this double breaker putt, and the caddy told him exactly where to putt it. And my dad made it, and he was so excited. It's like, it's amazing. It's a 40-foot putt.
Yeah.
How do you know that was going to happen? It's like Morgan Freeman hit that putt a week ago.
That's awesome.
Right. I'm playing on the course.
Yeah.
All right. We are down to our final hole. I have my lovely yardage finder. It's pretty accurate, but it's also got the tempo training on it. I know I can't do that. But if I could get that tempo perfect, I could hit the ball so well, but it can't play with that. We have in the pro golf, they are now allowing the players to use rangefinders. Sped up the game a whole lot. Warren, you got an opinion on that?
All the USGA events are allow rangefinders. Yeah. It's an opt-out rather than opt-in now. That they're all allowed. I don't know if they're allowed at the Opens, but they're allowed at all the other events.
Yeah. And it's straight yardage, not slope adjustment.
You've got to have the slope feature or any other feature turned on.
Right. Which now there's, I saw the cube from South Korea, and it takes into account humidity, temperature.
All that
weight.
stuff would not be allowed.
It's basically Rodney Dangerfield in that putter. Dial it in, it's going to be in all every time. You know, I've never understood the whole, like, reading the greens, knowing how fast the greens are and putting at the same speed every time. But as college players, you guys have a good reading of, if I take the club this far back, it's going to go this far on this stimp, right? So
In theory.
Yeah. That's the idea.
Yeah. But I think, yeah, allowing rangefinders at this point, the cat's out of the bag, and it just would speed up play. Instead of having a caddy, you know, step off 40 yards or something like that, let's just get this thing moving.
The problem with the rangefinders is that they use the rangefinder and they still step up for you.
Seriously. It's ridiculous. But I'm also interested I don't think I would consider, artificial device help, but the new rules coming out with the USGA and RNA about the ball rollback, saying that the balls are, fly too far and that we don't have enough green space for all of this, and that over the years, golf club head speeds haven't changed that much, but distances have grown dramatically, and spin rate has decreased so much to where you're not, hitting the hooks and slices or all that stuff so much. So I think by 2026 they're supposed to roll all the balls back?
Not all, yeah, all the balls.
Yeah, even for, random Joe Schmoes like us, not just the tour pros.
So stock up.
Yes. So
On the left dash, is that the best one?
yeah.
and I mean, it's been more fun, I think, since all the technology has helped me. Like my game is better with the club advancement and everything like that. I just want to make it harder for amateurs. I don't know. I just, it's kind of an open sort of ending here on ChatGPT, AI, things like that. We're going to have all of our programming on that. I want it to be from a place of embracing it where we need to, and not necessarily leading with fear. I don't want to lead with fear. I don't want to say that it can't be used in certain places. They're gonna fix the fake citations, right? Like it's not gonna just, that can't be the one thing that we throw it all out because it, you know, this be exciting at one point. So we need to have more filtering on this. We're gonna find limits, and we need to push back. And I think we need to lobby on limits where they're needed, but also understanding that it's gonna help us be much more efficient, better counsel. So, you know, to be continued on that. It's 4:30. We're done, y'all. Please sign in for credit and tell all your friends to love you so much.
Thank you.
Like that.